Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are digging into Surf When You Can, and it's quite a story. It's all about a Navy captain who put his entire 30-year career on the line with just one single email. Why? To save his crew. We're going to unpack the leadership philosophy that led him right to that moment. And it all really kicked off with this one powerful plea. As a deadly virus was just ripping through the USS Theodore Roosevelt, Captain Crozier sent this message. Now, this was a huge deal. A direct challenge to his chain of command, and it was a decision that would in the end cost him everything. So yeah, that email leaked, and it cost him his command. A career he'd spent 30 years building, gone. But getting fired also gave him something unexpected. Time to think. And this book, this is what came out of that time. A really deep dive into the values that made him choose his crew over his career. To really get what was at stake here, you have to look at the numbers. 1,200. That is a staggering number of sailors, almost a quarter of his entire crew who tested positive for COVID. Trying to quarantine them in the tight spaces of an aircraft carrier, he called it an impossible task.
And that's really the big question, isn't it? What makes someone do that? The book answers it by looking back, not just at that one crisis, but at all the little decisions and experiences over the decades that shaped his philosophy, long before the whole world started watching.
Okay, so let's jump into the first core principle, the one that really defined his command style and guided him through that whole mess. Sailors first, mission always.
Now, this wasn't just some catchy phrase to put on a poster. It was actually a direct shot at the traditional mission above all else thinking in the military. See, for Crozier, the logic was simple. You can't accomplish the mission if your sailors aren't okay. And he backed this up with a bunch of small but really powerful decisions. Take this, for instance. He went to bat, fought through all this red tape, and got pushback from some of the old school leaders, all just to get Wi-Fi for the junior sailors. It might sound like a small thing, but imagine you're a 19-year-old kid on a floating city with 5,000 people you don't know. Being able to call home? That's everything.
And he didn't stop there. He bucked that super rigid, no exceptions culture by letting a senior sailor fly home for his daughter's graduation. Now, the old guard, they hated it. But Crozier argued that a ship that's run well should be able to handle life's big moments. And the message that sent to the crew was loud and clear. You matter. Your life matters.
And this one just perfectly shows his mindset. He literally stopped an entire aircraft carrier off the coast of California on Thanksgiving Day. He just anchored it there for a few hours so the crew could get a signal and call their families. Actions like that, that's how you build trust that you just can't break.
So, this intense focus on his people leads right into his second major principle, and it's a leadership tool you might not expect, using kindness as a weapon.
Way earlier in his career, his team had to board a ship they thought was smuggling. I mean, you can imagine, it was a super tense situation. But after they secured the ship, they did something totally out of the ordinary. They shared their own food. We're talking foot-long turkey subs, sodas, cookies. And just like that, all that tension just vanished. It turned into this friendly, almost happy encounter.
And here's what's so powerful. He ties these moments of compassion directly to being effective in combat. His whole point is that when things get real, when bullets are flying, sailors don't just follow orders. They follow a leader they trust, a leader who's shown them again and again through these small acts of kindness that they've got their back.
This sense of humility wasn't just about kindness, though. It was also key to his third big principle, that a leader has to always be a student, constantly learning from the very people they're supposed to be leading.
Just picture this for a second. The captain of a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier walks up to a young sailor and says this. Instead of barking orders from on high, he'd walk up to his crew with real curiosity and just ask them to teach him about their jobs. That kind of thing builds an incredible amount of pride, and it just shatters those rigid barriers of rank.
Because his core belief right here is that admitting you don't know something isn't a sign of weakness. It's the absolute foundation for growth. As he puts it, when you stop learning, you stop growing, and you stop improving. Simple as that.
All right, so all of these lessons, putting people first, leading with kindness, staying humble, they all come together in the book's central philosophy, which is this really cool metaphor for life, balance, and leadership. The title itself actually comes from his time stationed in Hawaii. He'd surfed before, but it was there that it really became this ritual, and it taught him some pretty powerful lessons about perspective, and maybe most importantly, about resilience.
And to make his point, he actually quotes, of all people, the great American philosopher Ferris Bueller. Because surfing, or really any activity that lets you just disconnect for a bit, it forces you to stop and look around.
And this right here, this is the key. Taking that time for yourself, whether it's surfing or hiking or just reading a book, he says it's not a distraction from your work. He argues it's exactly what makes it possible for you to thrive in your work. It's what builds up the strength you need for when those inevitable storms roll in. And to actually put this philosophy into practice, he uses a simple but really powerful mental trick he calls the rocking chair test. Whenever he has a tough decision to make, he asks himself, okay, decades from now, when I'm sitting in my rocking chair looking back on my life, how will I feel about this choice? It just forces you to think about the long game, not just the short-term pressure.
And at the end of the day, the book kind of leaves us with that same challenge. When you look back, are you going to be proud of the choices you made? For Captain Crozier, facing that impossible decision, the rocking chair test gave him a clear answer. He chose his sailors. And in doing that, he created this legacy of leadership that reminds all of us that every single decision we make, big or small, really truly matters.